What's coming up on today's show? The 2025 IFSC Paraclimbing World Cup takes place next week in Laval, France. Canadian paraclimber Jeremy Ritchie is set to compete at the event. He joins the show to talk about his training and much more. This is PSN.
Welcome to Parasport Nation with Alex Smyth and Nathan Clement.
Hello folks, it's Nathan Clement and I got some exciting news. I have just recently learned Alex has found Waldo. Where's Waldo has now been found and he's going to be on the show next week to break it down. But joining me today is Jeff Ryman. So Jeff, how's it going today?
It's good. I'm glad Alex was able to find Waldo. I can't wait to hear all about it on next week's edition of the program.
It's going to be amazing. I think he's going to be really excited to share all this news with us of everything that he's done in his time off and time away. But while he's been away, there's been a lot of action on the Canadian sporting scene, especially in the major four Canadian sports. And it's got me thinking and pondering a question. Does Canada have a team? Now, I should preface by saying right now at the time of recording, the Seattle Mariners and the Toronto Blue Jays are playing in the American League Championship Series in Major League Baseball. And this has even got me thinking back to when the Edmonton Oilers went on 2 Stanley Cup runs in the last several years, or even teams in the past that have gone on a run, say the Toronto Raptors when they won the NBA championship. And it's a great question because we know with our neighbors to the south, there's the conversation of the Yankees, the New York Yankees in baseball being America's team, or the Dallas Cowboys being America's team in the National Football League. But to you, Jeff, do you think Canada has one official team other than our national programs?
You know what? I think Canada does have a team. You can go in any direction here, really. At first, I thought it was the Blue Jays, but I don't think that's correct because for people like yourself, Seattle is awfully close. And I know a lot of people in BC travel down and are just huge Mariners fans. So I can't really say it's the Blue Jays. I'm going to say it's the Toronto Raptors. And I think it stems from that 2019 championship run. Their slogan is "We the North," and basketball has expanded drastically within this country. There were just preseason games out in your neck of the woods, out in Vancouver. I had a couple of friends who checked out the game. It's such a deeply rooted and such a rich fan base that it doesn't just stay within the greater Toronto area or in Ontario. It expands right through the country, and I think it's very evident. Obviously, once upon a time, there was another NBA team out in Vancouver, the Grizzlies, which, I'm pouty face, I know.
I'm crying.
I know. So I think just that. I mean, there's just so much love for the game of basketball that no matter where you go within this country, the Raptors game will be on. That can't be said for an NFL team. Here for me in Toronto, it's been, the Buffalo Bills. If you're down in London or Sarnia, Ontario, it's typically the Detroit Lions. If you're in the prairies, it could be the Vikings. It could be the Seahawks out for you, and the Patriots for a lot of people out in the east coast of the country. So I don't think there's an NFL team. There's no Canadian NFL teams. There's only one Canadian basketball team. So I'm going to say my final answer is the Toronto Raptors. How about you, Nathan?
For me, it's hard because we're such a big and vast country, and especially we haven't even touched on hockey and how contentious those fan bases and those rivalries are. Because every time a team, say, goes on a cup run, whether I think back to 2011 when the Vancouver Canucks went on their run to the Stanley Cup Finals, I think it was the Globe and Mail or National Post did a story being like, are the Canucks Canada's team? No thanks. And that was just like the reputation and feeling like certain teams have, or even when the Oilers went to the Cup Finals the last couple of years. I'm a Canucks fan, so I was cheering hard for the Panthers, and I know 90% of people outside of Edmonton were feeling that same way. So in hockey, it's so hard to find a team, and even with baseball right now, is There's definitely a heavy Blue Jays influence in Vancouver at the moment, just how close things are, as well as the Vancouver Canadians are the single A affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays. So a lot of their prospects come through the Vancouver pipeline up to the big league, up to the show. But I'm a Mariners fan through and through, and I think in those sports, it's hard to say like any of those teams are Canada's team. The one that's closest, and I am not a proponent of Canada has a team. I think we're so rich and diverse in all aspects of the country, we don't have a team, but probably the closest would be the Raptors, and especially because of that run they went on in 2019. But as a West Coast person, and you mentioned it earlier in that conversation, the Grizzlies leaving Vancouver in 2002, that still like cuts deep for a lot of Vancouver folks. And I know the NBA is talking a lot about expansion, and we're just hoping, praying that the Grizz or a Vancouver team comes to the city, as this is a great sports location, a sports city. But I still have to say Canada does not have a team, just from the richness and just how big of a country that we are. We have our own unique cultures. We have our own unique things. And you broke it down perfectly with like the NFL breakdown, how the Maritimes usually like the Patriots or the Giants. Ontario's a big Lions and Bills area, or even like some people cheer for the Browns. I know a lot of people from Ontario cheer for the Cleveland Browns, but we are getting too sidetracked and too lost, because right now we have a Canadian team, one of our national teams, Canada's team, Canada's para-winter team, over in Europe right now for some competitions here. And in the recent months, and we've had him on the show and we've talked about it, Greg Westlake coming back. We have Greg Westlake back, as well as new faces in the coaching staff for Canada's para ice hockey team. How important is matches and tournaments like this now leading into Milano Cortina?
Yeah, I mean, the clock's ticking. We're less than half a year away from the Paralympics in Italy, and there's very few opportunities left to get a feel for each other and for your opponents. And so for Canada, like you mentioned, yes, there's a couple of personnel changes and a couple of really big ones. Rarely do you see a head coaching change of this magnitude with just months to go before a very major competition. So that's the big one, with having Boris Rybalka as the new head coach for this Canadian para ice hockey team. And then, of course, you mentioned Greg Westlake making his triumphant return. He was on the coaching staff for the better part of a year and now is back to suiting up. So he's going to give that veteran experience. This is his fifth or maybe even sixth game. So just that experience alone back on the ice is going to be crucial. But chemistry. You want to build as much chemistry as you can in such a short period of time with all of these changes. Like I said, these are not very minor changes. A new head coach, a very established veteran player coming back is a pretty big thing. This is pretty big. This is crucial, Nathan, for their development, their chemistry, and of course their confidence leading into Milano 2026.
It's a great stepping stone, and just check on a lot of things as the Canadian para ice hockey team. Their goal obviously is gold in Milano Cortina, and they have a very tight, close squad that's led by great leadership. And you think of Tyler McGregor, you think of Dixon, you think of even Greg Westlake coming back. So it's a very tight group that have had that experience playing against each other and playing with each other so often, whether it's in practices or games. And even getting Boris Rybalka coming in, that can be a nice little switch. That can be a nice little change out of maybe different concepts, different schemes that they've had in the past. And I think this tournament could be that exciting little glimpse into what could happen 6 months down the road as the puck drops October 20th in Austria, Czechia, which is a big spot for para ice hockey, as there's often a lot of tournaments and a lot of competitions there. And it's really exciting just to see what could be possible at a tournament like that. But that's not the only tournament right now happening in Europe featuring Canadians. We have the IFSC Paraclimbing World Cup happening in Laval, France, as Jeremy Ritchie and Canada's paraclimbing squad gets ready for a major competition there. And we have the privilege of speaking with Jeremy Ritchie today. Let's go to that interview now. Jeremy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First off, at the time of this episode's release, we're a week away from the 2025 IFSC Paraclimbing World Cup in France. How are you feeling heading into the World Cup?
I'm actually feeling the strongest I've ever felt. For the last couple of years, I've been battling some shoulder injuries and stuff. And I just made my own climbing foot. That's going to give me the edge to do moves that I haven't done before. So I'm excited. I tested out this morning bouldering and helped me send the hardest boulders I've ever climbed. So
that's really amazing and incredible. What does the preparation look like heading into a World Cup like this in France?
I consist of either like doing a lot more like fingerboarding, which is like hanging on like small edges, or just ramping up the amount of climbing I'm doing, spending like 3 to 4 days a week in the climbing gym, and a couple days in the like the regular gym, just lifting weights and some cardio, just getting volume in pretty much.
It's an exciting time anytime you're that close to a race, that close to a competition. Is there anything that you're really looking forward to being in France or being at this World Cup?
Well, I'm looking forward to implementing like the mental training I've been doing for the last couple months, hoping that my head game is stronger, which will lead to me making better decisions in my movement and climbing higher on the wall. Also looking forward to like catching up with all of my international friends.
It's a pretty big team Canada is bringing this year, with a lot of different athletes across like all categories and all classifications. What does it mean to have a roster of that size, and especially with experience and a tight-knit group like what Canada has?
It means a lot. Like when we're only like alone, it's overwhelming. Jesse can definitely speak to this. There's so many logistic things you have to deal with by yourself, and having a whole team behind you it's a lot easier to manage, and you're just it just feels way more supportive, especially considering like everyone that's going, I either climb with or talk to regularly.
That's really amazing. And for yourself, is there any goals or targets you have for the World Cup in Laval?
So like my category has about 22 people, and I'm really looking forward to trying to prove to myself that I can make a top 10 finish. And I know like in like a future, I'm really hoping to make a finals in an IFSC World Cup, having the biggest category of pretty much all the categories.
Hope that can happen, and it sounds like the little innovations and little changes you made with the leg and everything is hopefully going to lead to that. You've gotten into climbing about 10, 11 years ago. What has the experience been like, and sort of the growth you've experienced as a climber, starting in the sport to where you are now, competing on that international stage?
When I started out, I didn't even know competition climbing existed for like an athlete such as myself. Started out in a like entertainment facility that had like bowling and like pool and stuff, and I didn't have a climbing foot, so it was very hard getting into the sport. But once I had like a climbing foot, I was able to excel, and over the years, it's just increased my overall body like strength. It's helped me with problem solving and meet and travel to so many different places and see so many people.
It's such a beautiful sport that way, and I've really gotten to know Seamus Bolian as well as Chaz Mazurki and some other members of that team, and especially when it was announced that paraclimbing was going to be in the LA 2028 Games. It was a celebration for all athletes across all sports, as this is such a beautiful but challenging sport in itself. What was that like for you when you heard that paraclimbing was going to be in the games? And as I believe your category is going to be in the games as well. So how does that mindset look at 2028 now?
Well, like when I found out, I was ecstatic. We were all a little surprised because we knew we were on the short list, but we were competing with like surfing and then I think skateboarding. And I've heard like those sports have the background already with like being developed. So we weren't sure we were going to make it, but I think having the Paralympic team, like people come and see the sport in person really made it happen for us. And I think my mindset is like, I never knew I had a chance at becoming a Paralympian. So we're going to be full steam ahead for the next couple of years, trying to get extra fit and hopefully be one of the 10 people in the world to compete in our category.
It's such a beautiful journey chasing that Paralympic dream and that Paralympic goal. What would it mean to you to be in LA 2028?
It would be, I'd be like I'd be completely awestruck. I know it's going to be the hardest category of all the 4 categories that are included to make it to the Paralympics. It would be just a dream just to be able to show up on the world stage and be seen throughout the whole world and show what we are capable of.
You mentioned that top 10 there. And with the sport like paraclimbing and a lot of other para sports, it's always evolving. It's always growing and changing. How do you see paraclimbing evolving from now to LA, but even yourself evolving as a climber and hopefully reaching that goal of the games?
I see it like becoming a lot more focused on, like I know the Paralympics is probably going to focus on more of visually appealing rock climbs. They're probably going to move into more like for my category, probably a little more dynamic climbing.
That's really exciting. And you're from Ontario, and Ontario has some great climbing locations all across the province. Do you have any favorite spots in the province to get outdoors and climb?
Currently, my favorite spot is Eagle's Nest. It's like inside like Bancroft, Ontario. We did our first multi-pitch this past August. It was a 290-foot multi-pitch climb. So it was really exciting.
That is really exciting. And with the sport of climbing or just in general, like I live in Vancouver, so I'm not far from Squamish. I'm not a climber myself, but I've had many friends who are climbers sleep on couches that come up into the Squamish Valley to go spend a weekend there. Is there any dream location for you to climb around the world?
Well, I definitely would love to get out to the West Coast. I haven't been west of Ontario yet. We're hopefully planning a trip to Canmore, which will be really exciting. Do some of the sport multi-pitches out there. But I definitely I want to get back to the Red River Gorge. We're going to be there this next weekend for the Adaptive Climbers Festival. So it's like a festival of like 150 adaptive athletes in like some of the best climbing in the world. So
that's really amazing. And that's one thing I've really learned, like speaking to Seamus, but also other athletes, I've just seen with other athletes, whether they're able-bodied climbers or adaptive paraclimbers, is just how tight and connected that community is. And there's so many amazing locations that you get to go to in the sport. Do you have a favorite food destination that's personal to you that you've been to?
I think the only one I really have experience with is probably Innsbruck, Austria. Just everywhere I've gone there has been really good food, really good hospitality, very welcoming.
Yeah, that the Innsbruck event is always that staple. That's the big event for the paraclimbing calendar. What is it like competing there in Innsbruck?
It can be can be pretty overwhelming because you walk in and it's an outdoor wall. It's like 50 to 60 feet high, and it's just you're just staring up at this thing, and it just envelops you. So and like the crowds there are huge because it not only is just for paraclimbing. There's the lead boulder, and sometimes they do the European speed there too, like all in that same week. So it's a huge crowd and way more like supportive.
It's amazing to have a spot and location like that. With paraclimbing, would there be an event that you would love to see come into the parasite or para discipline that would be added in paraclimbing?
Well, there's been talks about trying to do some lead stuff, but I would like to see bouldering. I think, at least for my category, where a lot of us love to boulder, it can be really fun, but it would be only certain categories because some spinal cord injuries can't do that without risking further injury.
Maybe for the audience, what attracts like bouldering to you as an event?
Just like the burly power. It just makes you feel like really strong when you stick a move that's just so like compressive, or like a heel hook or toe hook sticks, and you have to like reach across the whole boulder to get to the next hold. I just love like the physicality of bouldering.
It's such a beautiful sport. I know I'm repeating myself when I say it, but it's one of those sports that you get to watch and you're just in awe of just the grit, tenacity, and also the strength that every single athlete has. And we're really appreciative of your time. Jeremy, final question from me. What do you love most about paraclimbing?
I love the fact that it feels like, it doesn't feel like you're working out until you're done. It's a great way for like us, like adaptive athletes, to stay in shape that like can't run, can only do like limited like biking and stuff. And the community is like probably one of the most supportive ones in climbing. Even we're just really close.
That's really amazing to hear, and we're really appreciative of your time, Jeremy. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And that was our interview with Jeremy Ritchie before he heads to Laval, France. Jeff, was there any takeaways from that conversation?
Yeah, I think there was two big ones. The first one was just the mental aspect, just like our previous episode with Nate Tucker, just the mental focus on such a very physical sport. I mean, most sports are very physical anyways, but just the mental aspect that he takes the time and really thinks about everything is so crucial, especially when it comes to climbing, because I feel like in that, like, it's very strategic. It's very, you can get into your mind probably way too easy. So just the mental focus on things is very cool. And then he also mentioned at the very end that it doesn't feel like a workout until it's done. I also think that's a really good mindset, because that means he's having fun, he's loose, he's relaxed. And usually when those three things go together, you're going to have a pretty good climb.
Yeah, it's an amazing mentality just to have that, but also have a sport where that's your kind of feeling. That's the kind of vibe that you go through during a workout. Like, I feel that in cycling, where you don't really feel like you're tired, you're exhausted till the very, very end. And that's like one of the best feelings that you can have in sport. Absolutely. Nathan, I know we're running up against the clock here. I have a game lined up, and some of these are from Alex's previous incarnation. Some of them I've added. This is Guess That Parasport.
Guess That Parasport.
So I've got 5 questions here for you, Nathan. They all have 3 clues if you need it. They're all parasports. We've played this game before, Nathan. Are you ready?
I'm ready to dive in.
All right, the first clue for this first sport. Athletes compete individually in this sport.
There's a lot of sports that do that. I think it'll be too on the nose to be cycling, and I believe cycling's been brought up in the past. So I'm going to go with a winter trend here and say Paranordic.
It is not Paranordic. This next clue might give it away a little bit. The focus is on strength, not endurance.
I want to say para powerlifting, as this is, I see the nod.
You're right. You got it.
Let's go.
You got it. You got it. It is powerlifting. If you didn't get that one, the third clue was competitors lift heavy weights. So I think that would have been a dead giveaway. Powerlifting, hoping to get an athlete on the show, hopefully for next week. Fingers crossed. Not confirmed yet, but I think that's a sport that we haven't touched on yet. That's like pretty cool. So good job on the powerlifting. This next one. This is a popular team sport.
There's so many popular team sports out there that really narrows it down. I want to say, right now at the time of this recording, we have World Cup events happening in sitting volleyball in the States right now. So to be topical, I am going to say sitting volleyball as my guess.
That is a good guess, but it's incorrect. You're somewhat along the same lines. You got a good mindset going here. Second clue is Canada is a strong medal contender in this sport.
Wow, there's a lot of sports that we have now had that history of being strong medal contenders and even have made our way back. Like even my previous answer, sitting volleyball, I think of para ice hockey to stay on a winter theme there. I also think because of Paris, the emergence and rising nature of Canada's wheelchair basketball teams, both on the men's and women's side, as an opportunity or a guess. I'm sort of feeling wintry with my answers or with my guesses, so I am going to say para ice hockey.
You're good. It's like somebody sent you the answers here. It is para ice hockey. Again, the third clue would have been a dead giveaway. It's played on ice. So good job for that one. We have room for one more here, Nathan. This is a summer sport.
Wow. There's a lot. Fun fact, there's a lot of summer sports out there. I want to say, I don't know why I'm leaning this direction. I'm swinging for the fences with this one. I'm going to say equestrian.
No, it is not equestrian. Another sport we haven't had on the show. Maybe we'll get an athlete on sooner than later. Canada has never won gold in this sport at the Paralympics.
Okay, they've never won gold, which means they have won a medal in this sport before, but not gold. I'm thinking back, we've had him on the show recently. He's probably going to be our best bet to get that gold medal down the road. I am going to guess para archery.
No, it is not para archery. Third and final clue here, Nathan. This is a team sport with a very long history and a couple of really big documentaries, primarily on Netflix, once upon a time.
That little documentary part maybe gave it away. Was this sport originally called murder ball that now they can't talk about anymore, as Chuck Aoki joked about in a Instagram and TikTok video? So I'm going to say the correct name for it, wheelchair rugby.
It is wheelchair rugby, once upon a time called murder ball. So 3 for 3, not bad at all, Nathan. Good job.
Well, thank you for Alex for putting the questions together as he's busy trying to take on the world. As I say that, Alex is going to be back next week. For myself, Nathan Clement, and Jeff Ryman, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Parasport Nation. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow us now.